This past weekend, the NASCAR Cup Series and 36 charter teams and a few uncharter teams went out to the Daytona International Raceway to race in the regular season finale in the Coke 0400. And let me tell you folks, it did not disappoint. We saw many things take place in which I will talk about in today's video. And on top of that all, the playoff field is now set and the playoffs are starting this weekend in Darlington. And today I am here to give y'all my full-on predictions on how I believe things are going to play out in Darlington. And at the end of the video, I'll give y'all my final 4 predictions. So there's a lot to talk about here today. So kick back and relax and enjoy. Please like and subscribe. But enough said here, and on to the intro we go.
I'm Chase Briscoe, driver number 14 Ford Mustang for Stewart Haas Racing, and you're watching William Blackwell on YouTube.
I believe it is necessary to start talking about this past weekend out in Daytona about the Friday evening qualifying session. And that's when we saw the 14 car of Chase Briscoe, my man, getting the pole. His first pole since Gateway of 2022, a year ago. And this right here was a big confidence booster, not only for him, but Stewart Haas Racing in general. Because Stewart Haas Racing right now has a lot of question marks surrounding them and their future. Right now, Kevin Harvick, the only driver in the playoffs, is retiring at the end of the year. And if he wasn't on the team, there would be no Stewart Haas cars in the playoffs. So as simple as that, they're going to have to make some big and tough decisions this offseason on what they're going to do moving forward. But Ariel Almirola was also in the front row, so you would have best believe there was going to be some type of teammate deal being played at the start, and which there was, where the 14 took the top and the 10 took the bottom, and the 14, as soon as he got across the start and finish line, he moved down to the bottom, and that's when we saw them just dominate in the first part of the stage. And towards the end, things got a little cranky, and we saw the 19 win the stage. Later on, in stage 2, it picked up. The intensity, just picked up. It was out of the roof. And at the end of the stage, we saw Ty Gibbs going for the stage win, and that right there was going to be a big deal if you were to win it. And next thing you know, he got turned by his teammate Christopher Bell. It was not on purpose, it just a racing deal. Bell had such a huge run, and he had to push to 54. If he did not, the 54 was going to lose a lot of spots and ultimately miss out of, if any, stage points at all. He probably wouldn't have gotten none at all, and he would have been in a must-win situation heading into stage number 3, because he still could have done a little bit of magic here and there, pointing his way in. But when he got turned, it collected many cars: Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, a bunch of drivers. And that right there took out a lot of contenders. And when stage 3 rolled around, things were kind of calm at the start. We saw Briscoe and Kyle Busch on the front row, and Briscoe just pretty much held his line on the bottom and led for like 30 to 40 laps. I don't know. It was a long time. And towards the end, when the pit cycle occurred, that's when it came up to bite him, because he was leading in the front, and the leaders on the super speedways are the ones that are more than likely going to burn the most fuel. And with him burning the most fuel, he had to stay a little bit longer when it comes to his pit stop, and that resulted in him losing a ton of positions and knocked him out of contention for the race. But the race continued on, and next thing you know, the 43 of Eric Jones is getting ready to make a move. This was not on purpose. I've seen people on Twitter say it was on purpose. Why? It's just a racing incident. He had such a huge run. He was going to give Ryan Preece a good shove, but that shove was just a little too much, and it turned the 41 car of Ryan Preece, and he hit the 14 of Chase Briscoe. The way he hit the 14 car with his nose just gave it enough air to go underneath there and just flip him over. He barrel rolled many times on the back straightaway, and it was a horrific crash. I've never seen anything like it. The Ryan Newman wreck was bad. Don't get me wrong. That Ryan Newman wreck had nothing on his Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece hit the asphalt so darn hard. It was ridiculous. And for him to get out of the car on his own power, but he had to get on the stretcher, that just says a lot on how tough he is, for one. And that's all I got to say. I believe the next gen car should have done a little bit more than it should have, or than it did. So NASCAR's got to do their homework, because we have seen cars flip in the next gen era, like Harrison Burton in the Daytona 500 last year. It just came over very easily, and you really can't stop that. I mean, Chris Buescher, when he flipped at Charlotte, it was nasty. And what was the case with Ryan Preece? It was a nasty flip. Next gen cars, when they flip, it is bad. It's bad news. And they got to do their research on it. And obviously they got the hood flaps and roof flaps. I'm sure there's something else they can do. Maybe put something on their spoiler. I don't know. They got to do their homework, because they got to quit getting these cars up in the air. I know it's never going to solve the issue. You're still going to have cars flipping here and there. But if you can reduce it by having them stay on the ground with maybe a couple of flaps here and there, who knows? That may solve the issues. But yeah, Ryan Preece wreck, bunched up the field again, and we saw them restart. Next thing you know, I believe they wrecked again. He bunched the field back up again. Kevin Harvick left his teammate in the middle of nowhere. I don't know why he did that. I thought Stuart Haas-Motto was getting another car with Kevin Harvick in the playoffs, and Harvick did not play the teammate role. He decided to go with the RFA cars, and that pretty much gave them the victory. Chris Buescher won, Brad Keselowski second, and Chase Elliott did not make the playoffs. Yes. So a lot of people are going to be mad I'm saying this. But the point is, at the beginning of the year, Chase Elliott was very hot. A lot of people thought he was going to be a championship contender. And next thing you know, he wants to be a all-American badass snow skier, and he got injured from it. And I got a very strong opinion about it. You do not see Patrick Mahomes playing pickup basketball, or Dak Prescott, or Aaron Rodgers. You don't see them doing that kind of stuff. They take care of them bodies on and off the field. And Chase Elliott has to take care of himself on and off the track. And when he did that, it came with a lot of consequences, severe consequences. For one, he missed many races. For two, his team was let down. And three, they were in such a big points battle early on, but they lost it all. And next thing you know, his sponsors were let down, because they're spending tons of money just to sponsor him. Because to make it simple, if Napa wanted to sponsor like a William Byron, that right there would probably be a couple of $1 million cheaper than Chase Elliott, just because how popular Chase Elliott is. So with Chase Elliott doing that, it hurt a lot of people. And he had no remorse about it, and that right there frustrates me and makes me mad about it, because he should have owned up to the mistake, but he didn't. But later on, he came back, and next thing you know, he wants to be an All-American wrecker in Demolition Derby and wrecked the 11 car at Charlotte. That also right there took him out of Gateway. Could have got a little bit more points, and maybe could have pointed his way in at Daytona, but Gateway happened. So Chase Elliott pretty much shot himself in the foot many times this year, and that's why he did not make the playoffs. But Bubba Wallace did, and kudos to him, because I believe he's going to be a force to reckon with if he can get past the first round. Because if he doesn't, I believe if he gets past the first round, I believe he's going to be a championship contender. But the first round, though, is going to be tough. He's good at Kansas. Bristol and Darlington are the big question marks. So if he can do good there, he may find himself in the round of 12. But enough said here. Let's take a look at the point standings. Whenever you start the playoffs, or any new round in the playoffs, in my opinion only, some people may agree or disagree, but the points really don't mean a damn thing. But the drivers that are in those positions do. But right now, I'm just going to take a look at the drivers and not the points, because I can care less looking at them, because it can change over the course of the next 3 weekends. But right now, on the bubble in 12th place is the 12 car of Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney winning the Coca-Cola 600 has got him in this 12th seed, and he's going to have to do a lot of work. Darlington, he's very hit or miss at. Kansas, hit or miss. Bristol may be his best chance, but he's too inconsistent for my liking, so I kind of fear for him in that 12th team right now. And in 13th place, we got the 34 car of Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell had a solid run at the beginning of the year in Kansas, and you got Darlington. He had a bad running at Darlington, and in Bristol, he's always been competitive there. So Michael McDowell in the 13th spot, below the cut line. I still got some faith in him pointing his way into the round of 12. The round of 12 for that 34 team will be a championship. It'd be equivalent to one because that's their goal. They know they can't go win a championship. They know they can't go to the round of 4. They're realistic people. And their realistic goal was to make it to the round of 12, which is very possible. And if they can make it to the round of 12, who knows? They may make it to the round of 8. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But in 14th place is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I really am concerned for him and that team. They started off the year hot, faded throughout the year, and right now they're not competitive. They're unreliable on every single race weekend. So I fear for them. In 15th place, you got the 4 cars, Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick, he's in 15th place. Don't get me wrong. He's far behind. He's going to work his way. He's good at Darlington. He finished runner-up in the spring, if I'm not mistaken, with a very damaged race car. And Kansas, he's obviously been successful there in the past. And Bristol is Harvick. Harvick can do anything at Bristol. And in 16th place is Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace, like I said earlier, if he can do good at Darlington and in Bristol, he's obviously going to do good in Kansas because that's 2311 Racing's best track ever. If he can do good at them 2 races, he's going to be in a good spot. But right now, on the bubble, in the good, is Ryan Blaney, and below is McDowell, Stenhouse, Harvick, and Bubba Wallace. But now let's take a look on who I got winning this Sunday's race at Darlington. Winning this Sunday night's race out at the Darlington Raceway is going to be no other than the 11 car of Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin started the 2023 season was very, very iffy. He had a couple of good runs here and there. He was just way too inconsistent. But as the season went on, the team got better and better and better. And so did Toyota. And that's why I have a lot of confidence in him and Toyota in the playoffs. Denny Hamlin has always been good here in Darlington. He's got many wins here in the past, so I think he's going to add yet another win to his resume out in Darlington. And he's going to advance himself to the round of 12. And that's going to be a big deal for him because I believe it's going to solidify him as one of the championship favorites. But finishing runner-up to him is going to be the 19 car of MTJ, Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. is hot right now. He won the regular season championship, which is giving him 15 more playoff points. And right now, he's got a big buffer. He's at least guaranteed to the round of 8, in my opinion, just the way he's got all them points buffered to his advantage. But Martin Truex Jr. is going to go to Darlington and will finish runner-up, and that's a 1-2 for Toyota. Third place, though, is going to be the 24 car of William Byron. I like William Byron right now. He's going under the radar. So is Chris Buescher. I don't really got Chris Buescher in this top 5 or my dark horse, but him and Chris Buescher, they don't get the PR work that they really deserve because Chris Buescher has 3 wins. He's won Michigan, and he's won Daytona, and he's won Richmond. He's won all of them races. And yet you really don't see much PR work around him. He's always about another driver, another team. And same for William Byron, because William Byron, even though he has 5 victories, I believe it is, he don't get the recognition like the other drivers that Hendrick does get. Like Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman ain't that high up, but Larson and Elliott, they get so much recognition. And William Byron just gets a little bit. And it frustrates me. But you know what, though? That's the reason why Byron's in the playoffs and Elliott and Bowman are on the sidelines. 5 wins. You cannot hide that. So William Byron will finish up there. So there you go. William Byron third. Fourth place, though, is going to be the 5 car of Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is a very successful driver here at Darlington. Pulled out a Hail Mary many years ago against Denny Hamlin. Did a video game move in 21. It did not work, but a couple of years later, fast forward to Ross Chastain in Martinsville, it did work, but back then it did not work for Larson, but I believe he's going to be competitive. He's going to be going for the race win. His team right now is kind of lacking some confidence and some momentum, so maybe they can turn the page this weekend in Darlington and go to victory lane, or at least have a solid run. But rounding out my top 5 is going to be the 4-car of Kevin Harvick. You can never go to Darlington and count out the 4-car or not have him at all as one of the favorites, because he's always good here. He's quick. He finished runner-up in the spring, so I like his chances. And my dark horse, and dark horses for now on besides Talladega and the Roval, are going to be playoff drivers. I'll keep that informed for y'all in the coming weeks. But it's going to be a playoff driver, and it's going to be Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, ever since he won at Nashville and before Nashville, he was falling off. And it's getting to the point where people, I don't know what's going on with Chastain. Suarez has become a little bit more competitive, and even though he's not in the playoffs, he was much more competitive than Chastain in the months of July and August. So that's kind of worrying, but I believe Chastain is going to a couple of tracks that he's good at, and he's going to turn the page and be all right. But whenever he had that talk with Justin Marks after Darlington in the spring, he hasn't been the same since. So a lot of people may put 2 and 2 together. Something really bad took place there. So I don't know. It's really something to keep an eye on, because he has not been the same since, besides Nashville, where he won. But he should at least have 2 to 3 wins. 1, that's not enough. But there you go, Vera. And the weather looks fantastic. It's going to be mid-80s throughout the day, and at night 77 degrees. And one thing to keep an eye on. Is a hurricane that's down in the Atlantic, working its way up through the southeast, and it's going to go through the states of Florida and Georgia. It may go through South Carolina, and if it does, it may, a big maybe, affect the race weekend, which I highly doubt it will, because it's going to be in the middle of the week, but it may affect team setup and people getting there safely. So keep an eye on that. I don't think it's going to affect the Sunday Cup race, but it may be a factor early on in the week for Xfinity and Cup practice and qualifying. But enough said here. Now let's take a look at my Final Four predictions. So probably by now you got the idea on who my Final Four was going to be. It's the 4 drivers I pretty much hyped up the most. Kevin Harvick in the 4-car for Stewart-Haas Racing, the 11-car of Denny Hamlin from Joe Gibbs Racing, the 17-car of Chris Buescher from Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, Roush Yates Engines machinery there, and the 24-car of William Byron. And out of these 4, we're going to do a little bit of elimination process here. I believe out the 4, the weakest link is probably going to be the 17 of Chris Buescher. So now you got it down between the 4, 11, and 24. And at this point in time, I'm going to eliminate the 4-car. Phoenix is his best track statistically, but with this new layout with the next-gen car, he's kind of struggled. So it's now between the 11 and 24. William Byron, his success goes so unnoticed. And he was good here in the spring, but I believe it is time. It is damn time that Denny Hamlin crosses the checkered flag as a champion in Phoenix this November. I believe it's going to happen. He's doing well right now, and he's got a lot of big decisions to be making in the near future, and it's surrounding itself in the Cup Series. Does he stay with Joe Gibbs Racing beyond this year? Does Toyota want to keep 2311 Racing? From Joe Gibbs, they want Denny Hamlin, and Denny Hamlin wants them. But it's up to Toyota. And if Toyota has a driver like Denny Hamlin win the championship, they will be dumb not to bring him and his team back. But I believe his success in the playoffs is going to carry a ton of weight in the contract negotiations. But enough said here. Denny Hamlin, your 2023 NASCAR Cup Series champion. And an update on Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece was discharged from the hospital this morning. I'm filming this on a Sunday night. Things are looking good for him. I would expect a big update tomorrow, Monday, around lunchtime, 12 p.m. So keep an eye on that. I really don't expect him to be racing at Darlington, but if he is, good. But I hope they take the safety precautions they need to be doing, because you would not want to risk it with anybody. And Ryan Preece is a good guy. I'm glad he got out okay. But enough said here today. Please like and subscribe and get your picks down below to be entered in this Sunday's Pick 5 contest.